Hey there, Robert John Hadfield from Audiomover here again to talk about analog stuff. You know, we spent a lot of time for years on this channel putting out things related to the stuff that we do here at Audiomover, which is we take old audio and videotapes and convert them into digital. We've been doing that for about 20 years. And because everything we do here is analog related, we decided that maybe it'd be fun to make some videos about some other fun, interesting analog stuff, which is albums. That's one of my favorite things about analog music is the record, the album. And I have thousands of these things. When I was a teenager back in the 80s, I just would, all the money I would get, I would just spend on these. And this particular album was so interesting. I remember when it came out, the song West End Girls hit, and it seemed like it was everywhere, and everybody was talking about it. It was just such a cool song. Now, the Pet Shop Boys were kind of following after the pattern of groups like Depeche Mode and OMD, who I know both these guys were fans of. But it was that electronic music that these guys were kind of following in the footsteps of bands like that. And so you had these two guys, Neil Tennant, who was the vocalist, and Chris Lowe, who was the keyboardist. And these two guys were Pet Shop Boys. And they apparently named the band after some friends that, I don't know, worked in a pet shop, and they called themselves the Pet Shop Boys. And then they just picked up on that name. And the word please, the story is that they wanted people to be going into a record store saying the phrase, "Can I get the Pet Shop Boys album, please?" Anyway, that's the story about where the name of the album came from. But whatever, however silly that sounds, this was actually, in my opinion, an excellent album. The music on here, although it had, I'll tell you, it had some of the more, what's the word? If you listen to the early days of synth pop, the sounds were very, very basic, sophomoric, and these guys had those similar sounds. I mean, when you get into electronic music, as it started moving into the 90s and beyond, it became much more mature, and the sounds became much more robust and interesting. And these days, you could just hear the quality of the sounds was different from this era. But the reality of it is the underlying songs that these guys wrote were really fantastic. This album was just, in my opinion, was just awesome. And so once again, you have Neil Tennant, Chris Lowe, that were the Pet Shop Boys. They were the guys that put this band together. They were just a couple of friends that apparently had met in a record store or something, and then just they became this great duo that put out some amazing music. So let's go ahead and look at this track list. 2 Divided by 0 was actually a really cool tune. And it had what sounded like, if you remember the old Speak and Spell, it had that kind of a sound. Although I've read some things about it where it was more like a talking calculator that they used, but it was this 2 divided by 0, 0, and they took that sound and they incorporated it into the rhythm of the song. And it was a really cool tune. And the lyrics were fairly mature too, because they kind of told this. They were telling stories with that song. And they had, once again, I thought that their lyrics were actually pretty strong in most of this music. So 2 Divided by 0 was cool. West End Girls, I think that one actually became a #1, like top of the charts song, and it was a great song. I love that one. Opportunities, Let's Make Lots of Money. That was another hit off this album. I also love this tune. There's lots of opportunities if you know how to make them. Anyway, great tune. Excellent music. Love Comes Quickly. This one is my favorite on the album. Love comes quickly, whatever you do, you can't stop falling. It is, I still, to this day, sometimes will put that when I'm out running, exercising. I will frequently throw that one in my list of songs that I listen to, because I love that song so much. Love Comes Quickly. It's got this haunting melody. It kind of tells the story that everybody has. You can live your life lonely, heavy as stone. And it just has this message, love. Anyway, I don't mean to get off on it. I just happen to love that song. I think it's amazing. Suburbia was much more melodic in Suburbia. It was a really cool tune. I got to be honest with you, I don't remember how the rest of these go. So I actually can't speak intelligently about those, but the whole side A of this album is just, in my opinion, they just knock it out of the park. And for an original, for an introductory release, I mean, their first album, it was fantastic. And to this day, like I said, their songs, Opportunities, I still listen to that one sometimes too. I think, anyway, this is a great album. And if you haven't heard those songs, you need to go listen to them, especially Love Comes Quickly. Like I said, that's just one of my all-time favorite songs. I think it's spectacular. Now, the inside of this album, they followed this same theme that they had on the front. They just had all these just different little pictures. Now, I happen to think that this is exactly the kind of thing that records were meant to be on the inside. This is what made listening to records so great. It was this kind of stuff. Because you would bring a record home, you would put it on the turntable and you'd start listening to it, and then you would engage with the packaging. What a lot of people don't understand, and I'm going to sound like a really old person talking about the old days right here, but what kids today don't understand about music was that when we had records at this time, music was not just the music. Music was, you weren't just buying music, you were buying an experience. The experience was getting in a car, going to a store, flipping through records, finding one that you were interested in, taking it, buying it, taking it home, taking the shrink wrap off. There was a smell that came with it. There was this tactile experience of taking it out and putting it on the turntable, putting the needle on, listening to it start, and then when the music started, you started investigating, experiencing the packaging. And, and why I say that this is exactly what records are supposed to be, you could literally sit here listening to the music, get through the whole album, and just keep studying all these little photos. What do they mean? What are they doing? Who is, and at the time, you may not know who Neil Tennant and Chris Lowe were. And so you'd spend some time in here trying to figure out which one's the keyboardist, which one's, and what are they doing right here, and what does this picture mean? And then so this is one of the sides, and you flip it over, and there's more. There were so many cool little pictures on here of them engaging with each other, engaging with the world, artistic looking things that you could get through the, a whole bunch of songs doing nothing but just looking at this packaging. And so this, once again, like I said, this is what made music at the time so great. It wasn't just that you'd bring an album home and you'd discover that you love all these other songs on the album. You would literally learn and engage and have this artistic experience with everything that hit all of your senses, not just listening. There was the sound, there was the sight, there was the tactile part, there was the smell, like I mentioned. There was so many things that went into listening to music, and this was a great example of putting packaging together that would just engage you. You could sit here once again while you're listening to the music and just study. Now, I also really liked when they would put things like lyrics in. That was kind of cool to see what they were really saying. But then there were other things that people would put in albums, in records, that would just keep you engaged with the band. And it was just a neat thing. Anyway, this was a great album. And I to this day think that the songwriting especially, some of the sounds, like I said, sound a little old, a little dated, but the songwriting, especially a couple of those tunes that I listed, the songs themselves are almost timeless because they were so well written. The lyrics are so good. The melodies are so beautiful that you could take these and put them in different, somebody could probably sit with an acoustic guitar and play some of these songs, and they'd be just as powerful as what these guys put together here, because the songs are that good. Anyway, and the Pet Shop Boys, from what I understand, I think they're still around. Now, I kind of lost track of them after the next album, which was but I had a friend back in Denver going back a decade or so, I think, anyway, he was a huge Pet Shop Boys fan. They kept putting album and album and album, and they still tour. At least they did at the time. I don't know if they're doing it today. But they have this massive cult following out there that just loves the Pet Shop Boys. And they were really good. They just were. So anyway, this was the Pet Shop Boys album, Please. It was their debut effort. I thought it was spectacular. I thought it was really, really an excellent album. Came out in, I think, 1986. So anyway, it was great, and I think it still, in many ways, holds up today. So there you go, Pet Shop Boys, Please. If you like these videos, please like and subscribe to our channel. And of course, if you have old audio videotapes and you need them converted to digital, go to audiomover.com. Been doing that work for a couple of decades now. Anyway, and we've done work with people in every state across the United States. Hundreds and hundreds of cities across the United States are represented in people that we've helped. I mean, it's amazing, that business, how broad and how many people it's impacted over the years, and it's been successful for a long, long time. And anyway, if you have old audio and videotapes, go to audiomover.com, start your order there, and I'd love to help you out with that stuff as well. Anyway, with that, have a fantastic day.